So, all right. So the first things first is I'm going to go over a winter portion. Then after the winter portion, and then spring comes after winter, and then I'll dive into the spring portion. So first thing I do when I come up to a beaver lodge is most of your beaver lodges are going to have thin ice. So you got to be careful. And the two items that I don't have with me today that I normally do is I'll have a chainsaw, and then I'll have a ice chisel. The reason for the chainsaw is if you ever have deeper runs, which you'll run into, I mean, the ice can be a lot thicker, so instead of spending half a day chiseling, I'll just saw it out, flop my set in. So, and when you're coming up to the house, a lot of times, yeah, the snow will be kind of indented in, and that's from the runs, and that's sometimes, especially on bank runs, that's where you can tell where the run's at, because that water was open and that snow kept going down and down. Eventually it froze, but there'll be snow, but not as much snow. You'll see that indent. So that's one way of telling. Another way is, so when I got up this morning, I thought about it, and a good way of finding a beaver run is, so if you ever, like if you don't have a stud finder in your house, and you're banging on the wall to look for your stud, well, where your studs are is solid. In between the studs is like hollow, like boom, boom, boom. Well, when you're with the ice chisel and you're going around, that's another way of telling where the runs are at. It'll be real hollow. And if it's a real active run, I mean, I came on runs where, March, they're like that. I mean, it just goes right through. And then a lot of times there'll be a lot of air coming up. And what I gathered from the air coming up is when they're coming out of their house, it's like a squeegee effect. All that hair or all that air in their fur is coming out. And I think that's leaving, and maybe they're exhaling underneath too, leaving that. I'm not sure, but it's air. So that's how you find the runs. And a lot of times when I'm coming up to that house, either side of the feed bed will have runs, and I like setting on close by the runs because it gives you kind of more of an advantage of getting that beaver, them seeing it, instead of being way on the far back side of the feed bed, kind of hugging up closer to the feed bed, but to where you can slap this set in. And this set shines late winter, and especially it shines like if you got like a house in the middle of the cattails to where the runs are super deep. This is where you're going to want to use this set.
Oh, I have a quick question. Your chainsaw,
Yep.
what do you got in it for bar oil? Do you have anything?
Nothing.
Nothing. No
Nope.
bar oil at all. Just
Nope.
empty it out.
Yep, empty it out. And I have one chainsaw that all I use is for beaver trapping. So I never cut wood with it, so there's never any oil in it. So, yeah. So this is what it looks like. A lot of times I don't bring sticks, but for this demo I brought sticks. If you're trapping around a beaver lodge, there's plenty of sticks usually. And this is about the smallest I'll go for this set. So first thing to do is, I'll chisel up my hole. Hole will be roughly like yay wide by like this. And that'll be it. So I can just put that in there. And then what I do is I'll clear the hole out. But then if it's deeper, what I'll do is I'll take this and I'll go up underneath the ice and I'll mark it. So that'll tell me how much wire to put down. And you want these springs, the top of these springs, just below that ice. That's what works for me. That's what I've always done, and I've caught beaver. So I always prep them like so. I always leave extra wire just because I don't know how thick the ice is on each one. But I'd rather do this at home in warm conditions than trying to do all this out on the ice. So like that, and then I bring, well, another safety thing is if you're by yourself, these are ice picks. So if you do go through, especially some of the country I'm in, there's no cell service, so you can't rely on that. You have a way of saving yourself so you don't die out trapping. I use them for coyote hunting too because I'm on ice a lot. So I bring a knife with me, And this is one thing I don't prep. I prep it when I'm out there, because as soon as you score this, it's going to start turning. So I try to keep it as fresh as I can. And then I do 2 checks. So I plug it in, I do a check, I'll score it again, reset it, and then on the second check I pull. Because a lot of times you catch a lot of your smaller beaver on the first check, just how it works. I don't know why, but and then on the second check it seems like you get more of the bigger beaver. I'm guessing the kits are more active. I don't know. So here it is. This is pine, by the way, and I don't use pine. This is what I had around the home place. I use popple. Popple. I tried different stuff. I've tried the whole potato thing. I've tried PVC pipe. Popple will outbeat anything else that I've found, me personally. So I don't think we got any populars around here. No, we don't. No.
There's different kinds of popple, and the best is the one that's called the quaking aspen. That's its real name, but it has that greenish, whitish greenish bark, and not the yellow bark.
Yeah, and if you rub your hand on it, it gives you kind of like a white film on your hand. That's what you want.
Right.
So here it is. So for demo, I'll score it like I would a popple. And why I'm doing this, it's pretty easy, because that's going to give you eye appeal. You know, that bright white, especially if they're cattail beaver. I mean, you're just going to hammer them because they haven't really had any popple. They've been eating cattail roots, and especially later in the year, it's good. So yeah, so this is what I'll do. I'll just kind of score each side just like that. I'll do the same thing on this side. And you don't have to do a lot. You just got to show some white. And what happened, like I was saying, is this will turn brown by your second check. And I check once a week, because there's no stipulation underneath the ice when you need to check them, but I always do once a week. And it seems to work, and it works out for a working schedule, which makes it nice. So there it is.
How do you have that attached to your trigger?
So this is the same, it's rebar wire from Menards. I mean, it's cheap, but I just have it wired up. I got the wires bent down like such, and then it just pinches right onto on your trigger, just like that. And then I get particular, so I bend these down, so it's not poking the beaver in the face when it comes up to grab it. You probably don't need to do that, but I do it. Yeah.
So the tips of your trigger wires are bent down.
Yeah, like a T.
Okay.
Yep, just like so. And then, before I forget, so since I'm running rebar wire and it's kind of a thinner gauge, I always double up one side, and the other side is a single. Reason being is I've lost traps in the past just doing a single, but they won't break double. I've never had them break double, ever. And if you're worried about it, you can always get thicker gauge wire. But I just run everything the same, just what I carry. I don't know, just my thing.
Does everybody know what kind of trap he's using there?
The conibear?
Yeah, it's a 330. And
That looks like a body trap?
Yep. Yeah, it's a body gripping trap. Yep. So your perfect catch, your most humane catch is a lot of times you're gonna get them right behind the ears, and it's lights out quick, and that's what you want. Yep. Every once in a while it happens. It's kind of a freak thing. I've caught them by the tail. I've caught them by the front arm, but it's pretty rare. I mean, maybe a couple out of all the beaver I catch in the winter will happen that way. And I'm running a Belial. And with Belials, they're different than any other trap. For one, they're safer. I'll show you here in a bit, but when you move these, they don't move. Versus like your Duke traps, they swivel. A lot of guys will run them up and then they'll wire them off so they don't swivel. These don't. You pay a little bit more, but I love them.
Brands of the trap.
Yeah, Belial. Yeah, and they close flush, which is why I can catch beaver by the tail and they don't get away. So here it is. So I flip that out. I run a safety. And if you're running Belials, you gotta get the Bridger works. I'm sure maybe other ones do. Not the cheapy ones from L&M, because they don't go wide enough for the Bridger. or for the Belial, you gotta get the bridger. So bring that on in. This is how I always do it. So I put that safety on, I let it sit.
That's very, very important, especially for trapping alone on it with a trap that size, because you are not getting yourself out.
No, and it hurts. I've been caught before. So this is what I'm talking about. See this safety? Where I put it, that's where it stays. So
You can't accidentally get put back on or fall off when you don't want it.
yeah. So what I do is I'll run this one all the way back. I'll bring this guy up. I'll bring this guy straight out, because if you run it all the way back, what's going to happen is you might catch up on here. So I just run it straight out like that. And then this is my trap tag. So that's the way I do it every single time. Flip that up. So now this is my stick that's gonna put it up underneath the ice. So now, say we got to a spot, it's like, oh shoot, we're down roughly that far. So I'll come down. Okay, well that's gonna put it just below the ice.
Is everybody following along? You making a picture in your mind of what he's doing?
Yeah, hook it up underneath the ice like that. So that way it tells me how thick that ice is. And all I do is I come up and around, do it twice.
Do you find that this set works better later in the winter?
Yes. Yep.
As their food supply that they have underwater gets sour, gets old, then when you give them a chance to see something brand new and fresh, you're more apt to come after your piece of wood. Even though they have a whole year's supply of either cattail roots or brush under the ice waiting to be eaten.
Yeah, so when you put something down fresh, I mean, they're coming after it. Yep. It works really, really well. March. And I will say, you gotta watch it. So if you're March trapping and you see a hot or a warm spell coming up, I haven't lost any traps due to weather, but I came pretty darn close to where this stick is almost all the way down in the water, and the hole will actually keep opening up on you. I mean, I've literally had it to where I'm out like this trying to get my setting stick to get it out of the water. So you gotta really pay attention to the what the weather's doing. So then,
you know, especially out on ice, it's really, really good to go with somebody. Especially until you're very, very confident in what you're doing.
yeah. And I do everything off a snowmobile and an otter sled. So I go, you have two notches. I go in to the inner notch on these sets. I go to the outer notch when I'm spring beaver. The only real reason I go to the inner one and not the outer one is it holds it better, it seems like. It's a little harder to set off, but then it's also easier for me to get off my safety. So, and it doesn't really matter. I just personally like going into the inner most of the time.
Inner should set off slightly harder than the outer one. That's the idea of having the two of them there. The outer one that you got your dog is farther away from your spring, and that takes less pressure to lift it up. That's the premise of it, but whether or not it's really lifted.
And yeah, so the baited sets always go to the inner one. Then what I do is bring it up like so, and then I just stick her down just like so. Take your safety off, and that's it.
There's hands there. That's the ice now. That stick will be sitting right on top of the ice, and everything else is hanging down below.
Yeah, so this is like picture in your head. This is the ice that it's sitting on. Like I said, that's our thickness. So the ice is coming all the way down to about right here. So this is literally sitting just below the ice.
And that's out in front of a run if you can.
Yep. If you can't find the runs, it's not a big deal. Just slap on either side of the feed bed, and they'll work it. They'll find it. So, yep. And that's that. That's a pretty darn simple set for a baited set. Now there are other ways of doing it. I've seen guys do it to where, let's see here, let's take this off real quick.
What brand did you say this one was?
This is a Belial.
That is the Cadillac Conibear body gripping trap.
Yeah. So really quick here. Yeah, you pay a little bit more for them. They've, well, as everything, they've gone up in price, but if you buy them by the dozen, I like going through Cumberland's myself. I just think they're a good group of guys. And if you buy them by the dozen, they kind of give you a little bit of a kickback. So take these off. I'll show you kind of another set you can do as well, really quick.
So you've taken the chain off completely, or do those come with chains?
Yeah, they don't come with cable. No. The 220s do.
Okay.
So, another set, say it's real shallow there too. You can run this through. Like that. You're going to go down into the mud. I've caught beaver this way. And same kind of thing. Obviously set your trap like so. You can do it that way too. But when you do that, make sure that this stick is a dead stick, dry. Because if it's green, they're going to chew this off. So that's not what you want. So, and even like when you're setting on beaver runs or caster mount sets, dead sticks, not green. So, yep, it's important. Well, let's dive into a little bit of the spring stuff here. Oh, you have any questions?
Not yet, no.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure I'll think of something.